a good day and welcome to all of you, and huge welcome to you, Anil sir.
Thank you.
Thanks for sparing your time. As you all know, friends, Mr. Anil is joining us from Singapore. So it's like it's 12 noon here. It's 2:30 p.m. on a Sunday. So thank you very much, sir, for joining us. It's my pleasure now to introduce Mr. Anil Mathur. Anil sir has 25 years plus experience in the IT industry. He's a veteran. He has learned the art of thriving under adversity. And as it is, we are going through a huge pandemic right now. So most of us are aware of now adversity. Willy-nilly, we are all part of this. In fact, talking about him, the 2009 economic crisis, he went against the tide and won the longest and the most prestigious contract for Microsoft in India. He's worked for over 2 decades with Microsoft, the most prestigious, one of the most prestigious companies in the world. And because of him, Microsoft was able to double its business in the manufacturing sector when everyone else, particularly in the IT consultancy, those kind of businesses, they were downsizing and they were shedding people, they were losing money. It was a bad time for worldwide economy. It was not a very good time. During this pandemic also, once again, using his skill sets, Mr. Anil is helping Microland, another company that he's associated with, grow its business, this time in Singapore and Southeast Asia. He also engages with some of the most prestigious brands in that region. At the same time, he's also running a very interesting startup, which has been co-founded with a few friends. We'll be discussing about it through this interview. On the personal side, Anil sir has a lot of interesting anecdotes and stories, and hopefully in the next 1.5 hours, we'll be able to share some of those snippets with us. But what I would like to add in this introduction is he shares his passion for aviation with his 2 sons, bonding with them through aero modeling and flying simulation. He lives in Singapore with his wife and younger son, and his elder son is studying in the University of Washington, Seattle. Welcome to this talk, Anil sir. Thank you very much once again for joining us.
Thanks a lot, Vikram. Thanks for the nice introduction. So kind of you.
Thank you. May I start with you? You work with Microsoft, Microland. Every time micro, how come this micro is a huge part of your work life? Can you kind of shed some light on this?
That's a question I often get asked, Vikram. Why micro every time? Because I started my career with Microland, then went to Microsoft, then came back to Microland, right? So actually, people in this, I believe, are from design background, right? Design and manufacturing and that kind of a domain. They will understand that it's the small things that matter, right? So, so while the word micro can have a lot of meanings, I think we all understand that small things matter, and it's those things that make a big difference. In this particular case, it so happens that both the companies have similar cultures. I like that the balance between freedom and process, there's a right mix in both the companies. Both companies have got very nice dynamic leaders. So it's because of that environment that I'm there. So that's the reason I've been always in these companies.
But that's interesting. Microland to Microsoft to once again Microland, and very interestingly, you mentioned it is these small things that matter in life. Sir, 20 years plus in Microsoft, there must have been, this is one of the best companies to work for. It's a dream company for very many, particularly engineers across the world. Could you shed any light on what would have been, there would have been very, very exciting and shareable experiences which you would like to present with us?
Sure. So one of the things I think you briefly mentioned that, but I cherish a lot is that I used to one part of the career was working with manufacturing companies, and I personally have first-hand experience working with Reliance, Godrej, SR, that point in time, Mahindra and Mahindra Group. And all these companies are unique, and the good part about these companies is they really represent what Indian manufacturing is all about. And I got first-hand experience working closely with them, helping them in their IT journey while I was with Microsoft. And it's an experience I cherish. I learned a lot during that time frame.
Absolutely. So from being an engineering student, I'm sure in the early to mid 90s, engineering in India, particularly computer engineering, would not have been that well established as it is today. From there to landing a job with Microsoft, and now 2 decades plus, and once again to Microland, what have been some of the lessons learned? What have been exciting parts of that journey? Would you kindly enlighten us about some of them?
So Vikram, it all looks great right now, green, like 20 years there and 5 years here and 25 years and all, nice companies to work for. But, when I started my career, when I came out of college, I didn't have a job. So it was really a struggle to get the first job. And then, going from Microland to Microsoft, again, it was not that I was going after that job. Uh, but I think one of the things that I've learned in this whole journey is that if you are prepared, the opportunity comes to you, right? I mean, it's about preparation. So, for example, a lot of people ask, how difficult was it to get into Microsoft? And I just tell them that there were no interviews. I mean, I didn't face any interviews at all because, for small, I just share this little story, which is
Please.
interesting. And because we have young audience, it's always important to share this with them. So I just share how I actually landed in Microsoft. It wasn't by design.
Please,
Okay.
that will be interesting. Yeah.
So what happened was I was in Microland in the branch office, and I was an engineer, a tech guy, and there was someone who was training, who was setting up a training in the next week, and they wanted to set up machines in the training center where we were going to have training for all of us. So this was coming from corporate office. Somebody was managing the Microsoft side of business in Microland. They sent a mail to everyone that, hey, I'm looking for volunteers to set up PCs and machines for the training next week. Someone who can come on the weekend, set it up. So I just volunteered. I said, yeah, I'll help. And I went over the weekend. I packed the machines from corporate office, put them in boxes, got them transported to the place where training was supposed to be there, set them up. We went through the training. Then after a few days, I wrapped them up, shipped them back, and set them up. So I did this. So this guy who was organizing training, he watched all of that. And then there was one more situation where they wanted someone to volunteer to do some little bit of study of the IT infrastructure of a company. So go to every machine, see what's there in that, make a note, come back and share the data. So I volunteered for that. And it was a very boring job, but I did it. Go to every machine, look at the RAM, ROM, all of that stuff. And this was like back many years back. So after I got the data, they didn't know what to do with the data. So I put it all in Excel sheet, and I just enjoyed converting into graphs. I made nice graphs, and I said, hey, here's what I've collected. They said, this looks good. Why don't you present to the customer? Because we don't know what to do with this. I said, okay. So I went and presented to the customer. Now, all of this was happening, and this guy was observing, right? So then this guy, the person was, working a lot on these initiatives. He leaves Microland and he joins Microsoft. Now, one of these days, he was in Microsoft, and one senior guy was asking, I'm looking for a good technical person in my team. Do you know anyone you can recommend? So immediately this guy remembered and said, you should go after this guy. He's got the right attitude, and he does all the right things. You should simply hire him. So I got a call. I was in Microland, and I got a call to go and meet this guy who was the hiring manager. I went there, I met him, and straight away he simply asked me, he gave me the offer right there and then, and he said, I'm talking to HR and I'm closing this. How soon can you join? There was no interview, and
Fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah.
so it's unbelievable, but this is what happened.
That's amazing, and that's a huge lesson in life, like you mentioned, attitude. And probably is this what we would define as professionalism, like the right work ethics, going beyond just the specified job terms and conditions. Anything that is on the offer, one you learn, and second you go out of your way to perform the duties which are important for the organization and its clients, and so on and so forth. But this is amazing.
So Vikram, you know about volunteering, right? I mean, whatever you're doing is actually running because of volunteering, right? And I think the lesson here is, one is there's no small task, right? I mean, taking a machine and shifting it, it may look like small work, but for that person, it was very important because they have to set up the training, right? So if you don't carry any ego, small tasks, they don't really matter, right? So that's one lesson here. Second is, getting out of your way and helping someone and volunteering is actually, you should never look at it that it will come back and pay you, but it often does, right? It's not that you're volunteering because you're expecting something to happen. You're volunteering because you're trying to help someone. And that always comes back and helps. It's even, and it helps more if you're going without any expectations.
Absolutely, that's the central philosophy of the Gita, Nishkam Karma, and that does. Ideally, we shouldn't do it because it will help, but selfless is the way to go, and it does. Like you're rightly mentioning, it's phenomenal.
Yeah. So in my life, wherever I shifted and did some roles, there was no interview ever.
That's fantastic, and that's an amazing thing to learn. And I would like to point out for our students here, in India, we do have, particularly at student age, even when we become professionals, we have this huge ego and this mindset of this work is beneath my dignity. This one I would not do. How would I be the ones who packing up stuff, taking stuff, carrying that? That's kind of the peon's job or the office boy or the helper's job. But it's phenomenal that you were able to share, and it did get you an offer from one of the best companies. That's very interesting to share with students. Charlie, moving on to the crux of this interaction. You have around 25 plus, a quarter of a century experience, and you've seen change from like pre-mobile era when we had no social media, no internet, no technology, to now when it is like 2020. Most of the interactions also, in fact, this interaction also happening because of those changes. Like 20 years back, even 10 years back, this would probably have been unthinkable. At this speed, people joining us from all parts of the world and learning, interacting, that ability to do it at a minimal cost and with phenomenal ease. So you've been part of the industry. So how would you define the difference? How would you sum up the difference between industry 3.0 and going ahead industry 4.0? What are the changes with reference to organizational culture, management practices, approaches, and workforce skill sets also? Please shed some light on this industry 4.0.
Sure. So Ikram, one of the things that I was doing in Microsoft was I was also heading the industry verticals, and manufacturing was one of them. This was purely working with the industries and verticals and uh, aligning their business plans with IT and things like that. So I had experts with me who were from manufacturing domain, from BFSI and all. One of the things that I learned is through that process is to really simplify stuff. I mean, industry 4.0, you will hear hundreds of terms, this thing, IoT, this machine learning, all of that. But I like to simplify it to something that is, that is easily understood. And because we're talking to people who have some interest in design, I think it's all the more relevant how to simplify stuff. So, and I like to do everything human-centric, So even in design, we have to be human-centric. So here, I will relate it to human body, and I'll come to that a little later. But let's talk about, the difference between Industry 4.0 and Industry 3.0 and 2.0 and whatever, right? See, one of the things that was common, or that's common across all of this. Let's first understand what's common. Something which is common across all of this is automation. Right. There is automation in industry 3.0, there is automation in industry 4.0, but the difference is in the degree of automation. Let me explain with an analogy. So in industry 1.0 and 2.0, there was this whole thing about how do I convert whatever humans were doing into motorized stuff, right? So you convert everything to a machine. So there was motor involved, but then the machine was operated by humans. So there were hands, there were like human hands. So I'm trying to go from one part of the body to the other. So then they said, hey, human hands can do stuff, but they lack accuracy, they lack finesse, right? And if we are going to produce in volume, we need that accuracy, that finesse. So and at that volume. So they said, okay, fine, what is the solution? And they created robots, right? So robots in a way replaced hands. Now humans were not really using their hands to operate the machine, it was robots. So industry 3.0 was all about replacing hands, right? So you can say, industry 1 and 2 was replacing feet, industry 3 was replacing hands, because there was this microprocessor chip that was invented, there were electronics available, there was motors available, so you could do that. So they replaced hands. And now industry 4.0, they're replacing the brain. So we're going up the body, right? So they're saying that we have machines which are available to us, but can we get the machines to take a decision on their own? The machines should be able to decide, because human beings, again, they don't perfectly decide all the time. So we want machines to decide. Now that's an interesting thing, right? A lot changes when a machine decides. A lot of things change. Uh, for example, we start thinking, oh God, what will happen to us? Where will we get a job? What will we do? What will happen if machines start taking decisions? If they replace the brain, right? So far as they're replacing feet and hand was okay, but now they're going to replace brain, what to do? But I'd say, see, two things. One is we have to accept it, and then we have to work around it. Acceptance is a big thing. And I'll ask you this question, Vikram. Are you right now, have you ever been a slave of a machine? Has machine taken a decision on your behalf?
I would like to answer in the negative. I don't think.
You don't think you're a slave of machine? Machine has never told you what to do, right?
I would like to think that way at least.
Okay, but I'll tell you, everyone, you included, including in this call, is already a slave of machine. And I'll explain how. Most of us who have ever used Google Maps and have looked for directions and have followed the directions are actually following the directions created by a machine. The brain is not human. When the Google Maps is saying this is the shortest way, and you simply follow that way, it's a machine telling the human being what to do, right? So we already are slaves of a machine which is deciding on our behalf. But we have let that happen because it's adding value to our life. It's not negative. It's not in a negative sense, right? So that being the case, you'll find a lot more of this happen. And that's what Industry 4.0 is all about. And and then you can get down to technical details, IoT, and how information comes, how it is processed, how machine takes decision, what are the patterns, and all of that. So you can get into the tech part of it. But the crux lies in the fact that now it's able to replace your brain. So then what is the opportunity? The opportunity there is really not to go into areas where you will be competing with that brain. Rather, go into areas where you will be mastering it. And I think some of the things that are very, very, very important to understand. Slowly a part of IQ, human IQ, is getting into the machine. But machine still doesn't have EQ. Machine still doesn't have creativity, which is very important in context of design, right? So those are areas still available, and I will contest that machine is going to come into that also. If anyone out here has used latest versions of Microsoft PowerPoint uh, and use the online versions, the latest versions, they will realize that when you are creating a PowerPoint presentation, you see that the machine, in this case PowerPoint, gives design recommendations. So it tells you, hey, this could look good in this way. So it's already giving you design recommendations, but yet, it still bases its experiences. It is still not really creative. If you really see creativity is all about some coming up with something new, some innovation. So I think those areas where we can be creative, and areas which are related to humans, which is empathy, for example. Those are the areas where the opportunity will lie in future. So students who are looking at human being and keeping human being at the center and doing design, human-centered design, they will always have a job. They will always have something in their portfolio. And if they are also looking at, they're keeping high EQ. IQ is important, but it's no longer so important. But yeah, if they have high IQ, high EQ, and ability to think, ability to convert that thinking into action, and ability to really have conversations, improved communication, express themselves. Those are the skills which are going to be the skills which machines overtake. Right?
That's
I've spoken a lot. I in one little flow, but the bottom part, the bottom line here is to go beyond what a machine does, get into creative thinking. So that's the point here.
wonderful. It's very relevant, and like you very lucidly explained, getting this analogy of human body, like we replace first the feet, then the hands, now even the brain. With Industry 4.0, basically we are looking at thinking machines taking part in the manufacturing process, and of course humans being at the cutting edge. It's innovation, and it's that thing that would be required. Could you kindly explain in further details what preparations would be needed from the student side, like how to prepare for this challenging brave new world out there, where we will be competing with our brains with machines who themselves are probably like almost like human brains. So would you kindly guide our students in that?
Sure, I think so. That's a good question, and I would urge, because we are talking to people who are right now focused around design. See, India has got a very good design heritage, but we kind of trivialize it, right? We call it Jugaad, and we never convert Jugaad into something more valuable, which I call as intellectual property, right? So I think creativity exists. Humans are creative, but I will say Indians are even more creative. And students out here, I would say, one of the things first is let's look at the few skills that we need here. The number one thing is adaptability, right? And adaptability comes from acceptance. So saying that, oh, how long will COVID last and what will happen? We just have to accept that it is there. And situation can change in either direction. It can become worse, it can become better, who knows? So we just should accept it. So one is acceptance, right? So agreeing that this is the environment is step one. Then second is adaptability. So once you've accepted it, then you adapt and you say, okay, now what can I do in this situation? And humans, again, highly adaptable. So we'll figure that bit out. So I think I have trust in our ability to do that. The third thing is this whole thing which Indians call Jugaad, but really it is innovation. And what we really need to do is learn how to formalize that innovation into intellectual property. If you look at the top countries in the world, the only thing they're riding on today is that intellectual property. It is essentially, think about, just look at where you're spending a lot of money. It could be that mobile phone that people are using right now. It could be a PC, where Indians are still dependent on external countries. But what they've done is they've taken this innovation, they've formalized it, converted to IP. And IP is what? IP is nothing but innovation which has been created in a way that it can be replicated. So whatever we see in those nice WhatsApp videos as Jugaad, if somebody actually took all of that, converted into a product or an IP which could be replicated, that is the skill. That is a preparation we need. So this this set of students who are right now with us, all they have to do is think, if I'm doing something, how can I replicate it thousands or millions of times? If they can build something or whatever they're building, if they can think of it as how can it be highly replicable? And it's not difficult, right? It's just design thinking. How can I make something highly replicable? Thousands or millions of people can benefit from it. That preparation is what they need to build. And that's the skill which will actually help them in converting that little Jugaad into IP and IP into value, right? So that's what is my suggestion and advice.
Coming from the student side, because I work a lot with students, I I might ask a challenging question. I hope you take up the challenge in a positive spirit.
Sure.
It's kind of easy for those with experience, like you've been there for 2.5 decades plus, and uh, from students' perspective, when they think of it, could you give any examples of how this can be done? Like, it's easy to say that's one thing, that okay, Jugaad to intellectual property, it sounds very good, but could you give any examples from your, say, student life or work life, if that can directly relate to students right now, those who are in their undergraduation, graduation? So it would help them connect much better and get a better understanding of what you're trying to convey.
Sure. So I'll give a few examples. Uh, I was when I was a student in college, right? Our college didn't really have great infrastructure. We used to do time sharing of PCs, and nothing was really available in volume. We didn't have enough of anything. But at that point in time, I said, if we have a printer, why can't we actually create a scanner? So think about it. This is like 26 years back, right? 26 years back, scanners didn't exist. At least we had not seen one. But the thought existed, right? And what can you do in an environment where you don't have anything, any resource? So what we did was we said, okay, we are going to make a scanner, but scanner has to look at each pixel and read, right? So how do you read each pixel? So we went out and we did what you would call today as Jugaad. But what we did was we went and there were VCRs during those times. So we went to old VCR shops, repair shops. We took parts from there, some clock parts. We took that 0.5 mm pencil and put a sensor in it so that we could read 0.5 mm of a pixel. We did all of that and we created a working prototype of a scanner at that point in time with just one stepper motor, right? So we were resource constrained. Today's students are not resource constrained, and I'll explain why. Today you have internet, right? You have the reach, you can communicate, you can showcase your idea to anybody without any constraint, number one. Number two, if the idea is good, because you can reach online, you have ability to draw investments, which again, at that point in time, we didn't have that ability. Number three, even if you have, let's say, investments and you have got, let's say, good ideas and you're showcasing them, you can actually today, do some subcontracting and get it manufactured at a low cost, right? So there are so many things that students can do thanks to the fact that now internet is available and every service is available on internet. The reason I shared that example was that even in those times when there were constraints, we actually built something. We might not have productized it. Probably we didn't have that vision at that point in time. Or we didn't have me after 25 years telling what to do. So that was one. Second example is, there was a time when I used to use auto rickshaws after office, late after working in office and going back home. I realized my mobile phone would not be charged and I would like to call people. So I created a little, along with a friend, a little mobile charger for auto rickshaws, which sits behind the seat of the auto rickshaw. Not only I built it, of course, this is all weekend work because weekdays I was with Microsoft, right? So along with a friend, we just not built it, but we created entire design and now the product is ready to sell. So if, for example, if someone in this group is interested in selling, a customized charger for auto rickshaw, it's available ex factory. They can actually work with INFI League and get access to it. But see, the point here is that while during working with Microsoft, which was 5 days, and of course you work extra also, I still could find time on weekends to go and create this product. So this product is it's ruggedized, it is theft proof, and it's made for India, right? Really well designed for India. So this is another example I want to give where you can create high volume, and this can be sold in high volume because it's designed in a way that can be packaged and sold that way. So the reason I want to share is here it was just a weekend activity. It wasn't even full time to get to the product, right? The other example is basically a company which I co-founded after leaving Microsoft, which is called Vjournal, which again is it's purely a online internet-based, SaaS-based company run by a friend, set up with my friends. Again, an example of converting an idea to a real company, and it's very well funded. So I just want to share with you that you should never stop because you think there is a constraint. There is always a way out. So you just have to really have the will to do something. So these are some of the examples. So my just to summarize all of this, I think what people should do is, if they have some ideas and they really do not know how to convert it into real money, tangible money, the first thing is find friends who would be supporting you in that mission, right? Second is actually get into it. So take action, step into it, right? Third is they should not give up, and that's the most important thing. It takes some time. It takes 2 to 3 years for anything to convert to something tangible. So if there are people who are into design and they are into innovation and they want to create something which they want to sell, then for them, my advice is to follow this process. Find friends, create a plan, get into it, spend time in the long term. And the earlier you start, the better it is.
That's pretty detailed and really fantastic, inspiring examples that you shared from your journey. One as already working with Microsoft's weekend work, that's pretty interesting. And thank you for giving the opportunity. Any of the students here, if they want to, they could connect. If they want to take up this mobile charger idea, they could definitely work with through INFI League Motorsports. They could connect with Sir and follow it up. So thank you very much for the opportunity for these students. That's fantastic. And the college example of that scanner was even more inspiring because probably that was done in conditions where early to mid 90s. I doubt if today's students can understand. I'm sorry, I'll just have to mute one of the participants. Yeah. So a very few would be today able to understand the kind of constraints during that time. I would like to take you further into that journey. Your CV mentions 89 to 94. How come that's like 5 years for a 4-year undergraduate engineering degree? If you can kind of take us through that journey. What exactly happened? Why did the 4-year journey take 5 years? Was it something specific to you or was it something general? I hope you don't mind.
No problem. I think it's interesting. People are struggling with pandemic here. They're saying we're going to lose 1 year. Really worried. But back then also we lost 1 year thanks to there was some protests at that point in time related to something called as Mandal Commission. If people Google, they'll find somewhere Mandal Commission written there. But what happened was during that time frame, all colleges in Rajasthan, they lost 1 year of education because there were too many protests and exams couldn't be held. So instead of covering our course in 4 years, we did our course in 5 years. But my message to people out here is, it doesn't matter. You can always catch up with life. It may seem that you're losing 1 year, and that time it was stressful for us. There's no sign of an exam, and we don't know whether to study or to have fun. That little challenge. Exam might happen, but you don't know. That was the situation. And but it went away. We finally finished, and so my 4-year course became 5-year course thanks to something which was not in my control. But yeah, I did pass. Finally landed up with a degree.
So there is a huge lesson in that, particularly relevant to today's times. Anything that seems huge and overwhelming, unsurmountable odds at present could probably 25 years down the line be laughable and a footnote in the journey, like you were mentioning. So that's one thing which our students can take and absorb through this interaction. So that's pretty relevant too. You did mention EQ and IQ. So you focused on EQ when we were discussing about design and Industry 4.0, the changes that people are expecting. Could you kind of elaborate more on that? What kind of changes, what kind of preparations should students be doing, and how would EQ be important for them to prepare for and to actually be successful in Industry 4.0?
Okay, so here is the thing. If anyone is really having, I would say, anyone who's really facing current pandemic with a smile on their face is actually a person who's dealing, who's having a high EQ, right? So that's a real test. We are right now in pandemic, and I'm not saying that people are not challenged because they have somebody in family suffering, or I mean there are a lot of challenges, right? People have someone in family, or even they are affected sometimes because of COVID, and current situation is tough. And I'm not even discounting the fact that it can be really challenging to really work to survive this crisis at this point in time. What I'm saying is, whenever we have a choice in terms of how to handle and deal with emotions, and if we take the choice of dealing with them in a positive way, then it makes a big difference. And that's where the learning really is. It can be extremely tough in a given situation to deal with it. But if you are able to handle emotions well, then you can actually think of other things. So, for example, in this particular case, a lot of people are into design. I believe this whole student community is into design. How are they thinking of leapfrogging their careers and thinking of 5 years ahead, assuming pandemic has gone, and doing those things which they might actually do later? They're doing those things today. So let's say they are going for a design career. Are they already looking at opportunities to really design right now, or they will wait till they get a job? So what I mean is, a person with high IQ will know how to do it, but person with high EQ would be already doing it. Okay, so that's a little bit of a difference. And people who are right now in that situation as to what I should do, my recommendation would be, think of what you would be doing if everything was all right, and think of whether it is right now anything is stopping you from doing it. And if something is stopping you from doing it, if it's a constraint, is there someone out there who can help you overcome that constraint? That's a very, very important thing to consider. And I'll give one little example of, there's a large customer I worked with. And when that customer became my customer, because I was working with them and I was selling to them as a salesperson, for first 3 months, they did not allow me to enter their office because they didn't like Microsoft. Okay. So I didn't get a gate pass. Then once I went to meet some friend there in their office, and they found me that I'm sitting there. They actually they pulled the person out from the meeting, and I was forced out. Okay. And then the same customer today is the best friend I have, and they gave me very good business. Right now, initially I could have given up, right? In the first 3 months, 4 months, when things were looking really bad and you're being insulted and thrown out of meetings and things like that. But I think it's about having that EQ that, hey, these things don't matter. They're small things. I have a bigger vision. And if I manage the emotions well, I'll be able to break in and get across. So getting dealing with the extreme situations in a very balanced manner, having being able to handle emotions is the place where a future is headed. Pandemic is just one small example. These students who are with us today, they're going to face a lot more challenges in their life, and they should simply say, okay, I'll accept whatever comes my way and deal with it as and when things happen.
That's really something to learn from. And like you rightly mentioned, EQ would be something would probably help us surmount this challenge, look at it in a different angle, uh, to an extent, discount it and keep moving ahead without being hugely perturbed, and keep doing those things which we would have been doing if God willing, this would not have been there. So keep learning, keep upgrading your knowledge, skills, and keep working hard. So that's probably the overall strategy. Could you share? You mentioned your new startup that you're working with, eJourno. Could you share some more details? How does it work? What exactly is it? In which field? How can people use it? Can anybody from here be associated with it? Who is it for? Could you please share some
Yeah,
details?
sure. I'm very happy to share. It's a exciting new venture. So this company is in the journey of videos, right? Currently, our product is about crowdsourcing of videos. Now, it's not like not a TikTok or it's not YouTube, but think about it as something which will feed into digital media companies, television channels, or even online news channels. These companies are looking for fresh, authenticated videos, either in form of stories or in form of news. So, I mean, people out here can go to their Play Store or App Store and download this app called VJourno. It'll be from a company called VJourno Technology Private Limited. And what we do is we either let people share their stories, or we get our customers to give them assignments. Now, every time they share a story or they receive an assignment, they have an opportunity to earn, right? So let's say I have a story to share, and I share the story. The story actually goes, the video goes physically from that phone device to the customer, and the customer, if they like it and they download, uh, the person who has shared the story gets paid. It's instantaneous, provided they've done KYC, of course, through Paytm. Now, the idea behind this is, as you would notice, there is a shortage of original content. Even today, as we use any of these, you look at a TV channel, for example, you'll see the same video being played again and again, right? So there is a shortage of original content. Second, there is content which you can't believe. So the other thing that we do is, because we are authenticating a person who's contributing, we are looking at serious contributors, people who really seriously are looking at contributing to digital media. So we are authenticating, and that's the whole process. So currently, this is the version 1 of product we have launched, and we have a couple of customers who are working with us in a pilot. And you know, we since there is a lot more design element which will go into it, if anyone is interested in contributing to the design of this particular applications and they are interested in internship, they can actually use INFI League platform, approach INFI League and say, I would like to have a design internship with VJourno, and then we'll evaluate and we'll decide. But this is an exciting journey. As you would know, the video content requirement is growing 40% year on year. And I'm talking about India, right? Digital media content. And we are in that space where we want to give authentic, good quality content and we have created a platform where anyone can participate. And we are looking at, reaching out to tier 2, tier 3 cities and use that platform to get media in the right way to the customer. So that's what it is all about.
Sounds very exciting and interesting. So anytime, anywhere news for any client anywhere in the world. So anybody could record and just share that news. And the best part is, like you mentioned, people would get paid for this, whether it is specific assignment from the client side or whether it is video which is being liked and then being downloaded. So it was randomly uploaded because the viewer that time felt that this is relevant, this is important, this is news, and they upload it. The moment somebody downloads that, they get paid a fixed amount directly into their ATM accounts. That sounds very interesting and doable. Best wishes for the huge success of this. So, would you be launching IPO for this? Has it been registered as a private limited, or what exactly is this being looked at?
I know it's a private limited company, but we have a long-term view. So I will not say no to an IPO, but it's a distance. Some distance has to be covered. There's a lot more work to be done on the app side. We have a good tech roadmap and commercial roadmap. So there's a lot of work to be done. But yes, this company is in for a long innings.
Okay. Before we open the floor for questions from our participants and students, could I just request you to share, there have been, if I remember correctly, from your journey, from your student days itself, you were quite the designer yourself, although you are now more like an IT guy into management and other things, but you have this heart and passion for design. Could you be kind enough to share some of those designs that you have worked on?
I could retrieve some. So this is like more than 20, 27, 28 years, right? Maybe 30 years old stuff. I thought I'll pull this out. Can you see my screen? Is this available?
Yeah. It's visible. Wow.
This is a couple of designs from what I used to do. On the left side is a little bit of a Jeep, and the right side is at that point a solar-powered vehicle that I thought we'll have, and purely a pen drawing, and the left side is a pencil drawing. So I used to do a lot of this stuff earlier, and I mean, I hope you got a view of that.
Yeah, still interested in following this up with your children, making them a reality?
Maybe post-retirement, a little bit of work I'll probably do in this.
Retirement means what? Nowadays, people don't, that's what people don't retire. So, I mean, and with your energy, with your passion, and with your experience, probably because you keep doing, you have this knack and habit for, with your engineering student days, you could do, make that scanner. During your Microsoft time, you could come up with that portable charger useful for auto rickshaws. So you have this knack for doing. Now with your full-time work, you're still managing a startup and a side company, this Journal that you mentioned. So you could probably, and there'll be, I guess there'll be a lot of interested student volunteers who would be willing to work on some of, if not exactly these designs, then maybe rework updated models of this kind of designs. So would you be open to that kind of ideas to mentor and guide students?
Certainly. Yeah, it's one area, it's a childhood passion, which somewhere I left because so many other things to do. So I just left it somewhere.
That will be very interesting and great. I hope some of the students take up this as a challenge and a passion, and maybe they follow up, and through INFI League probably they can connect with you and see how things can be taken forward. Okay, now we open the floor for question and answer. We'll be able to take, it's already 12:50, maybe 5 to 7 questions from students. Students, all the participants, may I request you to kindly type your questions in the chat box. There's this interesting question which says, a bit philosophical in nature. The Microland website has a video which states that technology works best if you notice it the least. A natural corollary to that statement would be that as technology gets more and more seamless, the back end of it gets more and more complex.
Correct.
So is there a possibility of more and more advancements in technology will make it so pervasive in function that it alienates its users? What can we as part of tech industry do to avoid that?
Great. It's a very nice question. And there's a lot of thought behind asking that question, right? So actually, the objective of technology is that it should not be noticed. It should be all pervasive. And the best technology works in that way. If you look at anything around you, and I want to make it more practical, not really related to the work we do with Microland, but related to, our day-to-day life, right? When we take a phone in sunlight, the 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 phone adjusts to the sunlight, and you can still read the phone, right? And when you bring the phone back in a room, it adjusts to the darkness, and you can still read it without any pain in your eyes, right? Now, there is a lot of technology which is behind that. There is a sensor which is detecting sunlight, and then there is software which is telling the bright or controlling the brightness, right? And not only it's controlling brightness, in some cases it's also controlling the fonts and how the fonts are being displayed. Now, this technology, which is doing it for all of us on a daily basis, is not visible to us, totally invisible. But it's wonderful. Just imagine if you didn't have the technology, you will not be able to read anything, either outside home or inside home, right? So I think that technology has to work in a way that people just don't have to feel that there is tech behind, but it's doing work for them in a very pervasive manner. Um, at the same time, on that point which says alienating the users, it has to work to support the users, right? That's the reason it has to be invisible. It has to be invisible in a way that it works for people. And hence, I was talking about human-centered design, right? Even the work I do with Microland today, we do a lot of adoption for technology. So we focus on how people will adopt technology, right? So especially in an online world, how can you make best use of technology? There again, our focus is that technology should just work for you, and you should not struggle with it. In the same example that I gave, people should not go and press a button, oh, I'm outside, now brightness has to increase. Oh, I'm inside, now brightness. They should not feel that there is a tech behind it, right? It should be good for the users. So I think the answer to that is, while it should be invisible, it has to work for the user, not really alienate the user. As people in tech industry, your focus should be human. And there's a lot of work to be done in this area. We have not even reached 1% of what can be done as humans, even with the tech we use. Even if you're using, for example, this tool, Zoom right now, there's a lot of work to be done for it to be made human-centric. We're still not there. Absolutely. Right? So as tech, we have to focus on the human beings and then say, okay, what are we going to make them effectively use the technology without them feeling the pain. So that's the answer to that question.
Thank you. Thorough and comprehensive, as usual. There's this very pertinent question, and it's kind of, how can we convert ideas into intellectual property when intellectual property rights aren't taught in schools or colleges in India?
Good point. Yeah, so in India, because we don't have so much respect for intellectual property, it's a challenge, and that's a very valid question. I think the answer there is, you are the generation that's going to make the change. You are the generation which will create that environment. My generation really, early part of our generation, right, which are without giving respect to intellectual property. But I think that's changing. People are switching from copying media to, subscribing to Netflix, right? So you're paying for the moment a society starts paying or recognizing the value of intellectual property, things start changing. And it is not yet taught in schools. That's right, because I think it's all legacy, and it is going to change. As you see now, there is this focus on Make in India, right? That Make in India is not just a theory. There's a lot of work being done to make that real, and part of that is also going to be, and it's going to strengthen this whole concept about how people can monetize what they have created, right? So it's a journey. There's no perfect answer. As individuals, it's our responsibility to really understand how we can do it. While I'm saying this, I should also share that intellectual property is not just about getting rights for it. It is also about making it available so that people enjoy and no one questions. I'll give an example. We have Amul butter, right? Now, I don't know if Amul butter has got an IPR or anything, but the fact that it is so easily available and it is people like to use it. I don't think anyone can come up with similar sounding name and compete and win against it, because it's not winning through intellectual property right. It's winning through the fact that it's available to people and it's created its own established presence. So we have to, as humans, we have to mature to thinking of intellectual property not just in terms of having a right to it, I mean legal right, but also in terms of having the mind share right. I mean, right to mind share of a user. If we get there, then they're not going to go and use anything else, because IPR there is in their mind, not really in terms of a legal or a court action. So, so that is again related to design. How well you design and how well you present um, to to the end user, that they like you so much that forever you hold the IPR to it. There's no need to go to a court or to declare that I have the IPR.
So probably the usefulness and the ability to monetize the product itself, the idea itself,
Yes.
would be the biggest markers for whether it is worth the effort and what exactly is the value of the idea itself. That's very interesting. Although we've covered it during the interview, but again, we would like to, and it's been specifically asked by a few students, how can they prepare better for careers and jobs, particularly given that it's hugely uncertain. COVID has now impacted all sectors, and particularly job sector has been kind of devastated by this. People do not have an idea where to go from here, what exactly would be the job options that are there. So how to improve themselves for better opportunities in the future, and how to prepare for the first career going onwards. So people who are in, let's say, final year or post-graduation, so what can they do to better prepare for whenever the opportunities start presenting themselves? 6 months, maybe 3 months, 8 months, 9 months, around a year from now. Any guidelines?
And here I'll come back to preparation versus, and this is, I think that's a point, right? So opportunity will come to those who are prepared. And you don't really have to, okay, it may sound very theoretical, but I'm talking about a practical experience. If people are prepared, the opportunity just comes to them, right? If you've done all the nice things like got yourself skilled, demonstrated that your skill works, done contribute to a real cause, and volunteering. Why not volunteer for design? Just go and help something. You find something is not good, just go solve it, right? So that initiative, when you take, automatically a job comes to you. I'll give an example. Since this person is asking, Sagar is asking for example, I will give an example. When I was in Microsoft, I hired for the tech role. I hired a person who at that point in time, listen to this, who at that point in time had just only cleared 10th class. Okay, I mean, he was in the job somewhere else. He was not like a student of school. He was mature adult, but he only had a 10th class pass, mark sheet.
Yeah, matric certificate.
Right? He didn't have anything else, but he was so good in the work that I could hire that person full time in Microsoft. That's an example of one person. There's another example of another person who had not even done his engineering, but in first year he stepped out of college because of some personal issues. But he was so good in his work. Again, we hired that person, and that person did engineering while on the job. Because why did we hire that person? Because that person was doing some work outside, working with another company, but he was doing really good work, and the work spoke for itself. So we hired that person. Of course, Microsoft used to hire only experienced people, but the point is the degree was not coming in the way. It was the skill and the fact that they knew certain things, they had that ability. That is the reason we could hire them, right? So, what does it mean? Now, the good part is most people will go through a degree, right? They'll get a degree, and so that degree is good to look at, but that doesn't guarantee success. That doesn't guarantee a job. What guarantees success and job is the skill and 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 a demonstration of the skill. So go and volunteer, go and create something on your own. If you are a design student, create something. Um, and you always have a choice. You always have a choice of whether to sit at home and only attend courses, or attend courses and also contribute. The more you contribute, the more you will see that opportunity will come to you. You don't have to go after it. And that's a reality. It always happens like that. So to answer that question in short, just go and create something which you are proud of, and that itself is good preparation.
It's very significant. These two examples of people who hadn't, one just had a class 10 certificate and the other not an engineer, so to say, but still hired by a company like Microsoft and directly by you. These are inspiring examples of how hard work pays.
And I should also tell you what happened to these people, right? The first one only works 15 days. He's now no longer in Microsoft. He works 15 days a week. Remaining 15 days, he chills out. He earns so much, okay, in a month. 15 days, he's a consultant.
Okay, yeah, so 15 days a month. You mean
15 days a month he works.
Yeah. Okay.
Remaining 15 days, chills out, reads whatever he wants to do. Okay. The other guy is a very senior person in Microsoft. Really senior person. Okay. Doing very well. So that's the story. Those are real people.
Inspiring examples, real life and real world. Related to this question, and I believe partially you've covered, but there's another question which says, what are the roles and responsibilities in Industry 4.0 of graduate engineers? And how and when would they be implementing things that they learned during their graduation? If possible, if you could share that with an example.
Sure. So here we have to look at the type of engineer, right? So here, if you look at, I mean, I can talk about computer engineer or IT engineer for sure. That's very easy because for them, it's about putting, getting data from IoT systems and then converting it using algorithms, and then, generating machine learning models, and then implementing those models to make things happen, right? So that's what IT or a computer engineer would do typically in an Industry 4.0 scenario. For a person who's coming, let's say, from a design side and mechanical engineering side, what they will do is, okay, so how will this machine work in that situation? So if I'm making a machine or I'm designing a machine which has to work in a way that it takes, not only sends signals, but it also takes commands and is able to act on it. So that design is what a design engineer who has got a mechanical engineering degree would actually get involved in. How to create those machines which can take inputs and be safe in operation while taking inputs. And they will have to look at, of course, safety is everything when it comes to machines taking their own decisions, right? So they'll have to work on those designs which are safe, simple, and as I said, highly replicable. So they have to come up with those intellectual property, those designs, and that is the other thing a design-oriented mechanical engineer would do. And then we can think about other engineering disciplines. So somebody who's from electronics, they will build those electronic control systems. If they are from electrical systems, they will bridge the gap between control systems and the real machinery. There's enough work for everyone in that in Industry 4.0.
So as long as it's relevant for the customers and that human interaction, that interface, what people need, as long as that can be designed through ideas, through services, through products, and that yes, unmet need be met through those ideas by young graduate engineers, probably few of them can be solved. And as you rightly mentioned, human-centric is the way to do.
Someone has to make that Industry 4.0 happen, right? I mean, and these are the engineers who will make it happen.
Absolutely. There's another question which says the corporate world is quite fierce. There's a huge competition going on amongst giants, and this competition poses the biggest challenge to the survival of startups. So, if you have an online business startup, the competition gets tough. So, how to overcome that challenge? So when one goes online, then everybody gets to know about the idea. That's probably what I guess this question is about.
Yeah.
And then there are giants who have huge money, huge technology, all those people, personnel on their side. So how to kind of an individual versus established corporations.
That's so there's no perfect answer to this question, but I'll make an attempt here. And here it is about two things. One is, if you are coming with a disruption and a disruptive idea, it's quite possible that you're going to disrupt a large company. And that large company, there are enough and more examples that you hear large companies how they did not change fast enough because someone else came with a disruption, and then everything changed. So most of the innovative startups you hear who in the last few years who have come up and who have become unicorns, they didn't exist earlier. They were small at some point in time, and then they became bigger, right? The key part here is to stick on to your mission, to build something which is so uniquely differentiated that the big corporates either want to buy you out or want to collaborate with you. So that's one thing. Second thing is, it's always a good idea not to do everything alone. It's always a good idea to partner with someone, especially when there is competition. It's stupid to in the modern times to say I'm all alone and I'll do everything myself. It's always required that you partner, and partnership is a big, I would say, risk mitigation strategy against failure, especially when it's fighting the big giants. And with all the big startups were small companies at some point in time. They survived, they fought, and now they're pretty big. Today, Google is so big, it was a small company, right? I mean, when I was in Microsoft, it was a small company. It was a startup. And now it's so huge. So I think it's about differentiation and ability to stick on through partnerships.
So basically, persistence, differentiation, the uniqueness of the idea, and the services being provided. Besides, of course, collaboration, like you rightly mentioned, to reduce, mitigate, minimize those risks which could come up. Okay. Is career change feasible amid the pandemic if one has the necessary skills? I think the question contains the answer itself, but if you may like to.
I know a lot of people who have done that. I mean, in last 4 months, a lot of people have changed their jobs. My friends and friend circle. So they're doing it. And only thing is the experience changes. You're not going to an office. You're simply exchanging organizations online. So the point is the feasibility exists. Is it a good thing to do? Is purely personal choice. It's a risk versus benefit thing. And if the benefit is sufficiently high to take the risk, then why not?
So, of course, with the necessary skills, it would
be easy.
Easy. Okay, there's this, and probably I think this should be the last question. I think we've covered it already, but if you could kind of take it up again, maybe quite a few students would be there. There were a few people who joined late and a few people who could not maybe pay that attention. It's now that the industry is shifting more towards automation. What is the future of mechanical engineering? How can we cope with this change? I believe that was the crux of the entire discussion today. But if you can,
So, Tasbih, my recommendation is. So I'll come straight to what you should do rather than what can happen. So straight away, I think first of all is accept it that industry 4.0 is there. So acceptance is a big thing, right? Second, once you've accepted it, then you'll say, okay, what does it really mean? It means that machinery is still there, right? But the brain is now outsourced to another machine, right? But always human beings can do a lot of outsourcing, but still human beings are required for certain things. What you got to do is find your own place in that environment. Are you going to be somebody who designs such mechanical systems in Industry 4.0 know that there is no need. I mean, the good part about an engineer is they can actually get into design, right? They don't have to worry about operations because operations are now being outsourced to machines. So, so think about whether you want to be in design of a machine like that. Number one. Number two, or you want to be in manufacturing of a machine like that. Number three, or you want to really go higher up the stack because you understand machines. You want to really get into the brain part, meaning you want to acquire, let's say, computing skills and be the person who is going to create the bridge between a machine and a computer and everything in between. So that might mean doing extra courses for, let's say, programming or understanding machine learning. You want to add more to it, take some mathematics, learn mathematics and learn statistics and look at mathematical models and apply that on machinery. That's a great combination and people give it different names, right? So, I mean, somebody who's coming from a mechatronics background has ability to look at machine models and implement them. I'll give an example of how it can be extremely good for a mechanical engineer. When I was building that little scanner, there was a single motor with which you have to do X, Y, Z motion. I was in college like you. I have to do X, Y, Z motion, right? With a single motor. So first time when I got a stepper motor, no one to tell us how to use a stepper motor. So we wrote the code and we running the code and stepper motor is not moving. Then we need a mechanical mindset to understand that when you give an instruction to a motor, there is a delay. So we added a little bit of a delay in our loop. When we added a delay, it started working. Now, if I was purely a computer engineer, I would wonder, I've given instruction, but the machine is not moving. But because there was a mechanical mindset which says, hang on, you give an instruction, give it time because there is inertia and momentum and all of those things, and give the next instruction. Now, that ability to combine mechanical knowledge with tech and IT knowledge is a brilliant place to be in. So if you can do it, why not take that up?
That's wonderful. You keep mentioning like you have this passion for design. You shared those beautiful school days. I think school or college days when you were a student. That time you designed those wonderful futuristic kind of Jeep and solar powered electric vehicles, so to say. And you are now designing companies. It's ultimately all design basically. And your engineering is in like you mentioned IT, computer science. So how did that happen? If you would have, and mechanical, these are probably older branches, civil and mechanical being older branches, they definitely would have existed. So any interesting thing that you would like to share from that time? What exactly happened?
So I was in childhood, I wanted to be a mechanical engineer because I was brought up in a factory environment in HMT. Okay, my dad used to work there. So I had this mechanical engineering mindset, but then I saw computers, I got excited and I wanted to get there. Um, again, it was not guaranteed that I'll get into computer engineering because our university said that you can get admission, but we are not sure you'll get, computer engineering. So we took the admission and our batch had to really fight to get computer engineering, at that point in time. So there was a struggle even to get the degree. In a way, we got our own degree ourselves. There was no guarantee. So
See,
there's a story there. But I think it's about your interest, right? So if you have an interest, as I was saying, someone who has an interest on taking, taking charge higher up the stack and work on machine learning, and they have the mechanical engineering background, that's a great combination. If you can bring that up, nothing like it.
okay, there are very interesting lessons that you have shared with us. It's a phenomenal journey from your student time to now, and very relevant industry-related experiences and lessons that you shared with us, which would probably help lots of students to learn, prepare, and achieve that success that they want to. And these interesting qualities that you mentioned for success: persistence, resilience, collaboration, and so on. were very relevant, and hopefully students will imbibe these, probably build upon these, and chart their way towards the future. Thank you very much. Sir, any closing thoughts, anything that you would like to leave our participants and students with before we probably close this meeting?
Sure, Vikram. There's one question I want to answer. That's the last one which Archit has posted, which is, in present, we have seen a lot of people losing jobs in private sector. How can we make our future secure in the sector? And again, this kind of situation arises. I will tell you something, Archit. There is no job security anywhere. And I'll say there's no job security anywhere, right? So you have to be always up to date on your skills and somebody who companies want to hire. It's your responsibility. So every individual has their responsibility to be hireable, and you have to constantly be updating your skills on a daily basis. And I mean it, on a daily basis. It's not like monthly, weekly, or in a year I'll do the certification. Every day skills have to improve. Even even Sachin Tendulkar used to do net practice. Even every day, even before every match, you would do net practice, right? So even if you're like ultimate, you have to improve your skills, and it's a continuous thing. So I hope that answers that question. So we are winding up, and some of these questions we can also do offline, right? So please use INFI League as a platform for this. In closing, I just wrote something, just about 15 minutes before this call. So let me just share it with you, Vikram. So he would not know this. Okay, so I said, रास्ते में है कई कांटे, कई परेशानियां, कई पहाड़ हैं. तो रास्ते में कई कांटे, कई परेशानियां, कई पहाड़ हैं. डरना नहीं कभी तुम जब तक तुम्हारे पास आईपी और जुगाड़ है.
Okay, so we will try to translate that in English. I hope you will help me in the
I'll do it right now.
Please.
I've done that for you.
Yeah.
In life, many challenges you are going to see. In life, many challenges you're going to see. Be fearless. You have your Jugaad and your IP.
Wonderful. That's amazing, and that is the central lesson from today. I hope students can. It was phenomenal, these two analogies that you brought, and I hope that would have explained to very many students very lucidly. Try to tell the difference. Be prepared for Industry 4.0, which uses when you use the analogy of the human body. That was phenomenal. So we have machines who would be functioning like the human brain itself, but like you also mentioned, that it's not, they can still not replace the human brain, the ingenuity as well as the innovativeness of the human brain. They will still be based on past experience. So going forward, if students can learn from that and use their brains too, and developing their own IQ, besides from the Jugaad to IP, that concept, which is phenomenal, which is widespread, which is probably very common, particularly amongst engineering and design students. And INFI League itself is known for organizing these huge national level ATVC competitions, where we have seen phenomenal amount of Jugaad from students. So student teams, they collaborate and they do wonderful work, and it's hugely inspirational, that 1 week journey that they go through. Probably a few of the students here would have already participated or would be participating in upcoming ATVC and other competitions that INFI League is preparing for. So thank you very much, Anil sir, for sharing these valuable insights, your life lessons, and helping our students in their upcoming journey, preparing for wonderful and successful and content and happy and that achievement-filled life that they are all preparing for. Thank you for sharing those snippets of wisdom, those wonderful gems of experiences that you've had, that very, very eventful journey from your student life, which also was extended by 1 year, almost like the corona pandemic that students are facing right now, and to the very successful place where you now are sitting. Singapore is the hub of manufacturing. It is kind of the Venice of the East, and a lot of it's like the Silicon Valley of the East. So thank you very much for sparing your time. Thank you for sharing all this knowledge, and it was a huge, huge pleasure for having you with us. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Vikram. It was a pleasure being with you and on this INFI League platform. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Look forward to your continued guidance and wisdom. Hopefully, the two challenges that you left students with, they will probably be connecting. A few of the interested students will be connecting with you through INFI League. So let's.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Wishing you all the best for your future and all the endeavors, and wishing all the students the best of luck. Thank you. Good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.